Hello, everyone. My name is Clare Lindah, and I am the CEO of the Soil and Water Conservation Society, and I am joined by two of my friends here, Keegan Colt. Keegan?
Yeah, Keegan Colt, Executive Director with the Ag Drainage Management Coalition.
And Chris Hay.
Yeah, Chris Hay, owner and principal, Christopher Hay Consulting.
Okay, and we are out here in central Iowa at a saturated buffer, and today we are going to talk to you a little bit about how to play guitar.
No, Claire, we're talking about managing these control structures.
Okay, no, we're talking about managing these control structures. Okay, so today we are going to walk you through managing water control structures. So Keegan, start out by telling us a little bit about these water control structures and why it is important to get out here, inspect them, and manage them.
Yeah, so these water control structures are used on a couple of the edge of field practices like saturated buffers, bioreactors, controlled drainage water management. And it's important to come out here and inspect them. There's a maintenance schedule that's set up. If you need to change your stop logs over the course of the planting season, the growing season. Also, after coming out of the winter, it's always a good idea to come out and take a look to make sure there's no damage done over the winter, or if there happen to be some really big rain, flooding type events, to make sure everything's still checking out and doing what it's supposed to be doing.
And so how often do you check these structures? Sounds like it's at a seasonal cadence?
Yeah, we don't have to be out here, every day of the week or anything like that. But, seasonally, it's definitely important to get out there and check it. If you have 3 times a year where you're supposed to change those stop logs, obviously those times, then yeah, once again, after a big event, if there's a really big rainstorm that comes through, it's a good idea to take a look at it. Or, coming out of the winter, I would highly recommend checking it out then too.
Okay, so those of you who have been coming out here every day of the week to inspect your structure, not necessary. Okay, Keegan, I'm headed out to inspect my structure. What are some of the things I want to make sure of right as I'm walking up to the structure?
Just if there's any damage, does the lid still look good? Make sure nothing hit the structure. Harvest seems to be a time of year when these structures might get a little close to some of the equipment out there and not be seen by everybody. People unfamiliar with the field. Make sure that there's no visible damage to it. Check at the outlet, see if the rodent guard's still in place on the outlet of these. What you want to bring with you, tape measure so you can measure the stop logs, make sure at the right setting. Maybe a flashlight if you want to see all the way to the bottom, or if you have trouble seeing to the bottom on it. If you need any extra stop boards with you, the tote with the stop boards, or if you're thinking you might remove some of the stop boards on that tote to take them back to the car with you. Then also it's a good idea to have maybe a log book with you so you can just enter what you saw that day and what you did.
Yep. You can see that this one is well marked out, so that as we harvest and do things within this, looks like a buffer, we can identify where it's at.
Absolutely.
Chris, tell me a little bit about this. This is a manual structure. So how does this differ from an automated structure?
So with this one, you actually have to physically move the stop logs yourself. So you'll have to raise and lower the stop logs manually. With an automated one, you can actually do that automated. So they can automatically open and close, and you can actually do that through your phone, through the internet. And so it's more convenient, the automated, but still most of these out there are manual control structures.
Order your Grubhub, manage your structure.
That's right.
Automated.
All from the couch.
It's all in the name.
Yep.
It's all in the name.
Don't have to leave the house.
Okay, so now we are going to open up this structure and get into it. Hold my clipboard.
See it, Claire.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to take off this clip, and
Good idea is actually once you pull the lid off,
okay, here we go.
clip it back on there. Otherwise, it ends up in your pocket and potentially in the washing machine or on the ground and then lost in the grass. So.
Never be found again, like my keys every morning. And also, okay, so fairly easy to take that off. Attached to back here, and agri-drain structure. Okay, we're in. Now the fun part begins. So we are going to pull out our stop log puller outer. That's the official name. It's in the script. Sometimes called the stop log tool. Keegan on the way over told us he calls it the bar. So if you want to hold this, I am going to pull her out. And then, Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about the tool?
Sure. So there is the loop here that we can use to then get down in there, get this underneath the clips that are on the stop logs, and so we can use that to pull them up. Then it's also got the notch here, and so when we're putting them in, we can use that, put that notch on top of the stop log and use that to push them down.
Okay, and what do we got up here?
So this is lithium grease, and so comes with every control structure, and so usually taped to the stop log tool like this, and so when we need to, we can then use that to lubricate the stop logs, the gaskets on those, to make sure they're moving up and down easily.
Great, and then this T just gives us some leverage for pushing and pulling.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so I am going to use this to pull out our stop log, and while I do, Keegan, tell me a little bit about what's a stop log, what is its purpose, what does it do for us?
Sure, so the stop logs come in 5 and 7 inch increments, and they're really the boards that can set your elevation points of your outlet. So during times of the year when the crop's not in place, you're not worried about getting out into the field, a lot of times the plans will call for more stop boards being pushed down in place. And then during the growing season, during operations, a lot of times you'll see that in the management plan to actually remove some of the stop boards, stop logs, so that elevation of that outlet's lowered down, so you get more drainage.
Okay, so we have one here that looks a little bit different than our others. Keegan, talk to me a little bit about this one. Why does it have this big V in it?
So for monitoring purposes, the V-notch weir here with the steel plate on it gives you a little bit more accurate description of the depth of water that'll flow over the top of that. And so if you're wanting to monitor for flow on these structures, it's a good idea to have them manufacture a V-notch weir for the top stop log.
And then Chris, talk to me a little bit about how these gaskets look compared to some of the other ones we looked at.
So yeah, you saw those other ones were kind of cracked and wearing out, so they're due for replacement now. You can see this is a nice fresher gasket, and so going to have a much better seal.
Okay, and that's that lubricant on it.
Yes.
Talking to the landowner, I think this site's about 8 years old, so it's on kind of good maintenance there to go ahead and look at those and replace the gaskets.
So is that around when we replace gaskets?
Well, whenever you notice they're starting to wear down, but yeah, definitely that's something to take a look at.
Depends on usage and things like that.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so as I'm pulling these out, handing them to Keegan. Keegan, I noticed that you have been putting them into a tote. Talk to me a little bit about how we where we want to set them, and also where we want to store them when we don't need them.
Yeah, so it's always important just to keep the stop boards clean. That helps the gaskets last longer. Otherwise, there can be dirt and residue that gets built up in the tracks there. So you just want to keep them as clean as possible, so it's a good idea to have a tote with you. Go ahead and throw them in there, especially during construction when this ground is really disturbed. That's really important to do. Otherwise, good idea just to know where your stop boards are always at and put them in one tote. That way you have them, you can grab them when it's time to put more in or take some out.
Okay, Chris, this looks to be like our bottom board.
Yes, as
Label's
it's
giving it
so
away.
cleverly named.
Tell us why this one's a little bit different than the others.
So it's got a little bigger gasket on the bottom, and so it's meant to help seal that bottom of the structure so you don't get linking around the bottom of the structure. And so you always want to make sure that this is in fact the bottom board, the one that goes in first, so you get that good seal on the bottom.
Oh, before we put our stop logs back in, before we set them, how do we know how many to put in? How do we know how high they're supposed to be? Tell us a little bit about what documentation we should be using to manage these stop logs.
Yeah, that's going to come from the operations and maintenance plan that you got when you got your design with the practice, whether it's saturated buffer or bioreactor. When you're putting stop logs in, it's easier to know how many 5-inch, how many 7-inch stop logs do I need, and so you should be able to find that somewhere in the plan. The operations and maintenance plan itself will tell you the distance from the top of the structure, and so when you're just checking in the field to see if it's set right, then it's easier just to use that distance from the top of the structure.
So that's why we bring our tape measure out, so we can measure the distance from the top of our top log to the top of the structure, and that's the number that we often have on our operation and management plan.
Yep, correct.
Okay. So we are going to set our stop logs in here. Go ahead and pop those in.
Yep, and remember, hooks facing away from those crossbars, and that also sets the gasket on the downstream side, so the water will push from the back side and give it that nice tight seal.
These ones are sliding down pretty well.
Yeah, these are going down easier than most. Like I said, we probably need to replace these gaskets, but that's something that we can look at here in the near future. use
All right, put our tool back
you can
in.
use the bar to put it down.
Yep, give us our final oomph.
And make sure they're all stacked tightly on top of each other. Then, if it happens to be water in the structure, you want to check to make sure there's no leaks through the cracks or through the joints of the stop boards, stop logs, and make sure everything's down tight.
Great. Okay, now we will put our tool back in. So it's there next time. And then we'll take our lid and our clip that is still here, thanks to Chris. And then we just loop that on the back side, give it a push, reclip, and voila! You have managed your water control structure.
Good job, Claire.
Anything else we need to know before we depart from our structure?
Well, once again, important to keep a log of what you do when you come out here and do those checks. So write down, if you made any changes, any observations like that, and just keep it consistent so you can look back and over your notes and see what was happening.
Chris, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, make sure the lid's on and attached so nothing gets in there. And again, make sure it's clearly marked and no other issues around the structure, and you should be good to go.
All right. Well, I hope this has been informative and fun as it has been for us. Now back to our live webinar for some great discussion.